So quietly, not just to you and me, but to those reportedly involved in these group of 6 playoff discussions, there has been a slight change to the selection criteria for the group of 6 team that will make the playoff. Now, for those of you that do not care for a group of 6 teams getting into the playoff at all, it's not going to go away because there would be a subsequent antitrust lawsuit and the Power Four would almost certainly lose on the grounds of exclusionary practices there. Now, this past year, there was plenty of frustration because 2 teams got in. Because the way the language used to be is it gave automatic playoff access to the 5 highest ranked conference champions. Because Duke was a 5-loss team who actually lost to Tulane a season ago, they didn't have a ton of standing just because they beat Virginia in the ACC title game, sitting there at 8-5, to look out at the rest of the world and go, oh, see, we should be in the top 25. That didn't really have. They lost to UConn as well. And look, Jim Mora Jr. did a good job with the Huskies program, but when you lose to Tulane and UConn, it's not exactly a great look, even if you have some other quality wins, which obviously they did. So what ended up happening is you took the American champion Tulane, you put them in the playoff. And then, because James Madison won the Sun Belt, they wound up going into the college football playoff. So now, the Power 4 conference champions automatically get in. Those are automatic berths. Duke would have been in the playoff this past year with 5 losses. 5, including 2 group of 5 losses. None of it would have mattered because they won the conference games they needed to. And that is the perfect representation of why I have and continue to oppose automatic bids to the college football playoff. I will never be on board with it. I think the committee's judgment, though not always perfect, is better than that particular outcome, but I view the sport differently than a lot of you out there, and that is okay. So what happens now for the group of 6 with this little language change is you don't actually have to be a conference champion. The group of 6 team that is getting into the playoff just has to be the highest ranked group of 6 team. A conference championship is obviously going to play a significant factor there. If this language, though, had been written this past year, but you didn't have the automatic berth for all the Power 4 champions, you may very well have had the 2 teams from the American Conference in the college football playoff in Tulane and North Texas. And I think this rule change, this little language tweak, and everyone that is below the Big Ten or SEC perceptionally is just kind of at the mercy of their, guiding these changes to the college football playoff structure. I think this is kind of the James Madison response, or if there had been a 12-team playoff back when Liberty got into the Fiesta Bowl, I think this is a response to that. Because stipulating that you have to be a conference champion removes the possibility of a team that doesn't have a particularly strong schedule, James Madison, being a group of 6 representative. And remember, this is going to have a new wrinkle in 2026 because you're going to have the rebuilt Pac-12 with their football playing schools in the fold. And their conference champion will merit serious consideration, I think, far more than the Mountain West. I think you're looking at the Pac-12 and the American as the 2 best group of 6 leagues. I don't even know if that's particularly arguable going into this season. I mean, the Sun Belt, not that there aren't good teams in there. I'm not trying to tell you these conferences are all completely terrible. I think the Sun Belt and the Mountain West are a step below the top 2. So what this is really made to do, in my view, is protect a team who we view as the best group of 5 team or who has the best resume from being eliminated just because they lost a conference championship game. So let's take an example. Boise State. They've won 3 straight Mountain West championships. Now they go into the Pac-12. If Boise State were to go 12-0 and then go to the Pac-12 championship game and play Washington State and first-year head coach Kirby Moore. If that takes place and Washington State wins, Boise State no longer has to get eliminated in order to make way for a more deserving, quote-unquote, conference champion. Because really, that conference champion might actually be less deserving based on the season they've had, but they just have the conference championship. So this rule flew under the radar, and the fact that it didn't get a ton of publicity in the last week or so as all this stuff was coming out, I think it feels like they're trying to slide it under the rug. I actually don't think this is a bad idea at all. From my vantage point, I want the most deserving teams to get into the playoff. And this is kind of a group of 6 equivalent of what happened to TCU when they made their run to the national championship game. Remember, TCU went 12-0 and they lost the Big 12 championship game. This rule essentially protects a team, and yes, it does, in a manner of speaking, under the right circumstances, remove some urgency from the conference championship games for group of 6 teams. But adding a loss can still be weighted against another team winning a conference championship. But TCU lost that, and so if they had done that at the group of 5 level, but the committee looked at their resume and said, well, they still actually have the best resume. They've had a better season than this group of 6 team over here that's a conference champion, but also, has 3 losses, one of which is really bad. And they haven't been very competitive against a Power 4 team this year. It allows for that little bit of leeway. So, pretty important thing to note. And I think this is a good idea. Sometimes the right sorts of changes get made. I'm more pro-committee than most. Doesn't mean I think they do everything right. On this particular front, I think you're making the right move. And it's a rule, by the way, that I think only has upside. What's the downside of doing this? I don't know that there really is one. Because if a team that's bordering on making the college football playoff or not goes into its conference championship game and loses, well, now they're probably going to be punished for that. And a team that wins against another good group of 5 team can now leapfrog them there. So, important thing to note. There are also important things to note in the great city of Seattle.